Welcome. Tonight, we will journey beneath the streets of medieval Paris into places most people of the time preferred not to think about. Above ground, the city bustled with noise and color markets, carts, and the ringing of bells. But beneath, in the dim spaces few ever saw, another Paris existed. A world of sewers, drains, and shadowed passageways. In this quiet exploration, we will follow the night soil collectors and sewer workers who kept the city from being overwhelmed. We will meet Philippe Auguste, the king who reshaped Paris in stone. We will explore the mysteries of crypts and catacombs, finally contrast the silence underground with the feasting halls above. So let us step slowly downward, into the hidden Paris that lay just below the surface. As dusk falls over Paris, the crowded streets grow quiet. The markets close, shutters are drawn, and only a few lanterns flicker in the lanes. It is then that a different kind of work begins. The city in the Middle Ages did not have the organized sewage of modern times. Waste collected in chamber pots emptied too often into the streets. Gutters carried refuse along the lanes, sometimes into the Seine, sometimes not far at all. To prevent the city from becoming unlivable, night soil collectors made their rounds. Carrying wooden yokes with buckets suspended, they moved slowly through the darkened streets. At each doorway, they collected what had been set aside, sometimes receiving a coin in return. What they gathered was carried beyond the walls, where it could be buried or sold as fertilizer. Their steps were heavy, their pace steady, their presence tolerated but rarely acknowledged. Alongside them worked men in the drains. Paris had some crude underground channels, descended from Roman times. Workers entered these spaces to clear blockages of mud and refuse. In narrow tunnels, bent nearly double, they worked by lantern light. The air was damp, the footing uncertain. Above them, carts rattled faintly by, but underground the sound was softened, distant. Imagine yourself for a moment in one of these passageways. Stone walls press close, moisture beads on the surface, and the trickle of water is constant. The light of your lamp throws long shadows across the arch. This is the world the sewer workers knew, silent and necessary. Their labor was largely invisible, yet without it, Paris would have been overwhelmed. Disease would have spread faster, water would have been fouled, and daily life above would have been impossible. In their quiet, uncelebrated way, these men sustained the rhythm of the city. From the unseen workers, let us turn to a man whose work reshaped Paris above and below the ground. King Philippe II, known as Philippe Auguste. His reign stretched from the late 12th into the early 13th century, a time when Paris grew rapidly from a medieval town into something resembling a true capital. Philippe understood that a great city needed order, strength, and permanence. He ordered the construction of the Great Wall that would enclose Paris, its towers and gates rising from stone quarried nearby. This wall, strong and carefully planned, gave shape to the city that endured for centuries. But Philippe's influence reached below the surface as well. He required streets to be paved, so that the endless streams of refuse would no longer soak into the earth so easily. Drainage was improved, wells were monitored. His reign did not bring modern sanitation, yet it marked a shift, the beginning of conscious attention to what lay beneath the feet of Parisians. Imagine walking the streets during his time. The walls rise above. Gateways open to trade and travel, but beneath, channels carry water away. Workers patch the paving stones, and inspectors note where drains have failed. The city grows outward, yet its hidden foundations strengthen. Philippe Auguste's Paris was one where the unseen mattered. His walls stood for defense, but his attention to paving and drains spoke to something quieter. The understanding that a city's survival rested not only on towers and kings, but also on the flow of water, the disposal of waste, and the careful maintenance of what most preferred not to notice. From the ordered work of kings, we move to the mysterious. Beneath Paris lie caverns and passageways, many created as stone quarries. Over time, some became places of silence, used as ossuaries, to house the remains of countless Parisians. Though the great catacombs we know today were organized in later centuries, the practice of reusing underground spaces for the dead has roots deep in the medieval past. Churchyards in Paris filled quickly. When space grew scarce, Bones were sometimes gathered and stored together, freeing ground for new burials. In the stillness of underground chambers, skulls and long bones were laid out in stacks, the living making room for the living by shifting the resting place of the dead. The air in these spaces was cool, the light from a torch unsteady, yet for those who entered, there was little of fear. Death was a constant presence above, as well as below. Imagine descending into such a chamber. The sound of the city fades. The air grows still, touched by stone and earth. Walls are close, the passage narrow, and yet here the history of thousands of lives is quietly kept. Each fragment belonged to a person who walked the streets above, who saw the Seine, who heard the bells of Paris. The underground ossuaries were not places of grandeur. They were simple, functional, and yet they held a kind of dignity. They remind us that Paris has always carried its past within its foundations. The living and the dead shared the same city, layered one above the other, time pressing gently downward. Finally, let us draw the contrast. Above ground in the grand halls of Paris, nobles feasted by candlelight. Tables were laden with bread, roasted meats, and wine poured into goblets. Music played softly, laughter carried across the room, and the air was thick with the scent of spiced dishes. At the very same time, beneath the streets, workers toiled. Sewer men waded in murky water, night soil collectors shouldered their loads, and stonecutters in the quarries felt the chill of the earth around them. No music, no feast, only the rhythm of labor. It is a striking contrast, yet both were essential to the same city. Without the unseen toil, the feasts would have been impossible. Without the endless carrying, shoveling, and clearing, Paris could not have thrived. This duality, light above, shadow below, defined the medieval city. Life in Paris was not lived only in cathedrals and marketplaces. It was also lived in drains and caverns, in the silence beneath, where men worked by lantern light so that life above could continue untroubled. And so we leave the underground world of medieval Paris. We have walked with night soil collectors through narrow lanes, entered drains by lantern glow, and traced the vision of Philippe Auguste. We have paused among the quiet of ossuaries and seen the sharp contrast between those feasting in halls and those laboring below. The city was layered, noise above, silence below. Together these layers created the Paris of the Middle Ages, a place of endurance, of hidden effort, and of quiet mysteries. As you return now to your own quiet space, perhaps there is comfort in remembering that so much of history is sustained by what lies unseen. The workers who toiled in shadow are long gone, the nobles' feasts long ended. What remains is calm. Beneath the streets, the past rests quietly, and so may you.